All right, I believe we are live here on. We're going to talk about The Witcher: The Edge of the World. This, I think, will be the second episode in the Witcher Netflix series. This will be the based on that short story by Andrei Sapkowski. All right, I'm just trying to verify that we're online and we're live. It says we're live. I can't see the video, but I believe that maybe we are there. Ah, there we go. Okay, so The Edge of the World is a story that features Geralt of Rivia and his best friend Jaskier, uh, who, if you're an English reader, is the poet Dandelion. And the poet Dandelion uh, and Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher, they're kind of hard on their luck, and they need another contract. So the Witcher is a monster killer for hire, and he meets with some local people, and at this really remote location, which is the edge of the world, in Lower Posada. They come across this farmer Netley and this local elder Dune. And Dune tells him the story about this diavel or devil, which is really a satyr. And the satyr is causing all kinds of problems, but Dune doesn't want him to kill the diavel or the satyr. He just wants him to scare him away and get him to leave because he's up to all kinds of mischief. But he also says that the devil or the satyr, which is a goat, half man uh, monster, actually does a lot of good things. He actually fertilizes crops, but then he also does mischief and steals stuff. And they tried to get him to go away, but it was unsuccessful. And so the first time Dandelion, the bard, who's kind of an idiot, he just is he's comic relief. And I think that's going to be what Jaskier is going to be in The Witcher Netflix. Is going to be mostly comic relief, but he's also Geralt's best friend. So Geralt is going to be played by Henry Cavill, aka Superman, and so Gerald's best friend Dandelion has kind of a big mouth. He's not super bright, and he's also definitely not good in a fight. And so they kind of lose their first scrap with the goat man, the satyr. And the goat man is, or sylvan is also another name for it, is his name is Torque. And the second time they go after Torque to try to get him out of Lower Posada so he doesn't cause all this mischief, but they don't want to kill him. They get caught by some elves, some very militant elves that want to kill them. And so the elves are Philandril is one of them. Toruviel, I think, is the head of them. Uh, and they also come across this guy named Galar. So a lot of these people have been cast. So this would be episode 2 of The Witcher. Um, the the statements by the person who's Jaskier, the bard, aka Dandelion, the actor, make it very clear that he has scenes with elves, and really the only scenes in the first 2 books of the Andrei Sapkowski short stories where Jaskier is with elves is in this short story called The Edge of the World. The other thing, if you look at the trailer, the trailer is very much um, in line with it talks about how the elves were mistreated. And the elves were mistreated. This story, The Edge of the World, really talks about kind of how the elves are marginalized. They're, from an American context, they're like the American Indians, that they've been marginalized. They put on reservations, essentially. They are the uh, true natives of the land, but they have been pushed out by the forces of men, uh, and the invading forces of men. So right now, we find out that the elves are using the goat man, the sylvan, or the diavel or devil, Torque, half man, half goat. He is gathering seeds for him. So the half man, half goat is kind of a pacifist. He's kind of a, he's a little tricksy. He's got a little bit of a wit. He likes to do riddles and stuff and have competitions, but he's not really he's a very pacifist guy, compared to Geralt and the elves and the rest of the men. He does not believe in killing people, and he's helping out the elves so that they can start uh, growing their own crops. And so he's giving them all kinds of. He's trying to give them kind of trade secrets in growing agriculture, something that the elves are not good at. They're more gatherers. They're very skilled in other things, but they're not very skilled in agriculture. And so that's the role of Torque, the goat man. And so the elves have decided that they're going to kill Jaskier and Geralt of Rivia, who they've tied up. They ambushed them. Geralt and Jaskier were just trying to capture Torque, the goat man, and then the elves came in and they captured um, Jaskier and Geralt, and they're threatening to kill them, and they're saying how they hate the men and how that they're so disgusting, and they're like insects to them. The men live much shorter lifespans. The elves are pretty much immortal, except they can be killed. So they could live hundreds of years, but they could also be killed by men or by starvation, and they're really starving at this point. So the elves are they're just like feasting on the turnips that Torque, the goat man, gives them, and that they're not really good at growing plants, and they live up in the mountains, so it's probably not that fertile of land anyways, had they had the experience. But Jaskier and Jaskier says a lot of stupid things that almost get them killed. And Geralt tries to reason with them, and he tries to say, "Hey, you guys are skilled in a lot of other things than agriculture. That you are skilled craftsmen, and you're skilled in all these other things. You should trade with the humans. You should assimilate into their culture and trade with them, and you'll live much more affluent lives, and you won't be an enemy to them, and they won't feel like they have to uh, wipe you out if you're giving you're trading with them. I know your skilled weaponry or your skilled craftsmanship, or for instance, they destroy Jaskier's loot, and they're skilled at creating instruments like that. So it's not like the elves are primitive, but they have a different set of skills that the men have. The men are very good with agriculture. The humans are very good with agriculture, and the elves are not so good with agriculture. The other thing that the elves, this kind of it's just a big theme through all the Witcher books, is like the men breed more than the other humanoid species, especially the elves. Though the elves live a long time, The sorcerers live a long time. The witchers live a long time. Sorceresses can't breed. Witchers can't breed. The elves breed, but very slowly. And the men breed much faster. And so they kind of overwhelm these kind of more enlightened parts of the society. And I think that I think that's an allegory too, right? In just the way that the non-human species are an allegory for race. I think the whole thing about these kind of very skilled people, like the elves, the sorcerers, the witchers, not not breeding very fast or not breeding at all, is an allegory. I'll let you figure that one out. And so the Witcher will be killed, and Jaskier will be killed, if not for the intervention of another pacifist, who is essentially this godlike creature, the Queen of the Fields. So Jaskier and Geralt meet the Queen of the Fields in disguise, and so the Queen of the Fields is kind of that's why Lower Posada, doesn't want to kill Torquay, is because they are getting like inside information from the Queen of the Fields, this goddess of fertility, and she is anti-violence, anti-killing things. She's all about growing things, and Torquay is on the same page as her. The people of Lower Posada are on the same page of her because she's buttering their bread. But she shows an appearance, and the elves bow down to her, and she says, "You can't kill the Witcher, you can't kill Jaskier," and they let him free. And Torquay is just like had it with the elves. He's kind of in the role that the Witcher Geralt is. That he's an independent party. He's not really taking sides. He doesn't mind helping out the elves feed themselves, but he also doesn't want to be an enemy combatant. He doesn't want to be uh, in guerrilla warfare. He doesn't want to kill people. He's a total pacifist. Of course, Gerald is not a total pacifist, but Gerald is always trying to maintain his independence, that he does not want to take sides. The only things that he wants to kill are monsters, and only the monsters that pose a threat to humans that are not intelligent. And Torquay obviously is an intelligent monster. He does not pose a threat to humans. And so at the end, Torquay and um, Jaskier and the Witcher end up traveling together at the end of this short story. Now, I think that the way that the Witcher 8 episodes will work, especially the early ones, is that we're going to get this main story. So my previous video talked about the story of the Butcher of Blaviken story, which is a twisted version of the Snow White story. You should see that. I'll put that link down in the comments. It's definitely in the description. And that would be episode 1. So the numbering of the episodes, I'm basing that on uh, what some folks on Reddit are posting in the Reddit Witcher Netflix. But there's a lot of, the Netflix let out a lot of information. Number one, we have the books, right? There are 8 books out there. They're basing this season on 2 books and a selection of short stories from those 2 books. It's very clear from the trailer to anybody that's read the first 2 books which short stories that are referenced in the trailers. Maybe the ordering is based on some things that I'm not entirely sure of. I'm not entirely verified. But I have verified that they have cast people for The Edge of the World, and it's believed that that'll be episode 2. It does not involve Yennefer, right? So we think that the Yennefer's backstory is going to be told probably in episode 1, probably in episode 2, probably in episode 3, where Yennefer does not intersect with Geralt, right? So Yennefer is going to be Geralt's primary love interest, but we're not going to see the last wish in the first 3 episodes. It's kind of up in the air if we'll see Triss in the 3rd episode, and so I'll save the discussion of the 3rd episode for another time. But the 3rd episode is going to be about the short story called The Witcher, which is the first short story that the Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski wrote. And that episode is about dealing with the princess that turns into a monster or a striga. And but we'll talk about that more in another video. Thanks for watching and subscribe. We're going to do spoiler videos for all The Witcher Netflix Season 1. I think we know exactly what the plots are going to be for that, but I still think they're going to be awesome to watch. I thought the trailer was awesome. They knocked it out of the park with the trailers. 16 million views in the first week. Top 4 videos on the Netflix YouTube channel. So that's pretty good. I think there's going to be a lot of demand for The Witcher, and I think they're going to do a good job with it. So subscribe to Linus Wilson channel. You see my little thing here? That's my sister channel about sailing. But I think you'll like the Linus Wilson channel where we cover the TV shows about medieval fantasy series such as Game of Thrones and The Witcher. I'm also interested in the Lord of the Rings, but I think Lord of the Rings is very early in its development. I've read all the books. I read all the Lord of the Rings books when I was young, and one of the things about the Lord of the Rings is it's kind of a PG series. It's not going to have the kind of more adult themes that you're going to find in The Witcher. I did not. I'd have to read it again. I did not find it to be. It's kind of very black and white, like Star Wars, whereas The Witcher is all about gray, in the same way that Game of Thrones is about shades of gray. So I'm interested in the prequel for the Game of Thrones. We'll probably cover that. We've covered Game of Thrones in the past. I've read all 8 books of the Witcher series, including the first 2 books, the 5 saga books, and then there was one more short story book that was written. So if you're thinking about reading The Witcher, I would recommend reading The Last Witch and The Sword of Destiny first, and then reading the saga books that start with the Blood of Elves. We may get to the very early parts of the Blood of Elves, but I kind of think we won't. It's up in the air at the end of season 8 whether or not we'll even get to the very end of the Sword of Destiny book, or they'll leave that for a cliffhanger. But obviously, if you read the book, you know the cliffhanger. So that's up to you. We're gonna do. So I think I'm reading the Silmarillion. I could not read the Silmarillion when I was young. I'm reading it now. I think it's an awful book. That's by J.R.R. Tolkien. That's what the Lord of the Rings Amazon series is about, is the Silmarillion, or part of the Silmarillion. It's not very well written. I have very low expectations for that series. I think Amazon way overpaid, and if they can, Amazon way overpaid, and if Jeff Bezos and company can get out of that deal where they paid $150 million just for the rights to the book, they'd be well off to do that, because I think the Lord of the Rings series is going to be the next Marco Polo. But I think the Netflix The Witcher series is going to do very well. It's going to be very popular, and it's going to be very good. The Witcher books are a really easy read. They are a fun set of books, much easier to read than Grimm's books of the Song of Ice and Fire, which I've read all the Song of Ice and Fire books and the associated books. Those are tougher reads. They're much tougher, much less entertaining. The Witcher is very entertaining. Not just the video games, but the books are very entertaining. I think the Witcher series is going to do really well. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.